Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here today. Sorry for the little delay there. Part 2. Coming together a little faster than I thought it was. And as always, with these Superbowl videos, joined by my good friend PsyClops here. Yeah, thanks for being here. And what a show, huh?
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you. And it's funny, I'd even ask you, like, did you even watch the game? I'm guessing not, right?
I watched the halftime show in a little bit. My middle son wanted to watch a movie with me, so
Okay.
Priorities, I suppose. I tried to watch more, but I saw a few commercials. I shared some of them with you. That's the beauty of social media, is you kind of get some of the commercials beforehand, right? And I knew the halftime show was kind of our bread and butter. We talked the most about that. And as far as things I figured that we would be able to discuss after the fact, as far as kind of predictions or things we'd expected to see, it'd be the biggest representation of that, the halftime show. So, but yeah, what were your biggest takeaways from the Super Bowl?
Well, so I've been going through obviously all these, movies, shows, music, everything like that, just noticing all the patterns. So I did have a pretty strong feeling about the things that we would see, but then you always have to question in your mind, like, how obvious is it going to be? How blatant is it going to be? And then when you see it happen the way it did yesterday, and like how many things that we ended up talking about in the first show that we saw, come to life. It was actually like really crazy. And even we were talking too about, even like the way the numbers line up and everything like that. And the way that the numbers, and everything ended up adding up, and it ended up being a perfect 19-19 score going into overtime and finished with exactly 47 points. And we were talking about the 47, everything like that. But yeah, it was fun too, because, I've been away from Twitter and everything, and I came back, and it was good just to be back engaging with everyone. And events like that are cool because it's like the whole community is sharing their input and things they're seeing. Yeah,
it was wild for sure. Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter anymore, to be totally honest. And a lot of kind of the people I kind of cut my teeth with as far as this type of information, numerology, symbolism, excuse me, those types of things. People that I hadn't seen posted in forever, or very sparsely, were all posting. It was pretty interesting. And I think you picked a good time to come back.
Yeah.
But
it was funny. I had a couple.
Go ahead, Claire.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, I had a couple people say, like, because I've been away for so long, like they just haven't even like looked for me in a while, but just because the Super Bowl was going on, they just like typed my name in and saw that I came back. And well, because in Twitter, I mean, the suppression is as bad as ever, but obviously I'm not surprised about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad. You can't even look at your number of followers to your actual amount of people that view your posts, because it's like a statistical anomaly. You're lucky if like 1% actually interact, which is a horrible number, especially when you look at algorithms like Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that, where it's significantly higher. But yeah, you can't get caught up in all that stuff. But yeah, where to start, man?
Well, I have an idea. If I could present my screen, unless you wanted to start somewhere.
No. I'm gonna talk less. I think I talked too much in the first episode, and so I'm just gonna follow your lead.
Well, I don't agree with that. So if it's 50-50 or anything like that, that's, if anything, it should be 75-25, you, me, but whatever. But yeah, so this was like the first thing that I saw the morning of the game. So it was funny too. I just went on YouTube and saw this post. So basically, people considered yesterday, February 11th, World Alchemy Day, as it was the day alchemy was born in the West.
We talked a little bit about the alchemical kind story, so to say, that existed, in this particular sporting event, and it exists in almost everything: music, art, these kind of social events. But yeah, that blew my mind when you when you posted that. I was super surprised. We kind of talked a little bit about the alchemy aspect of things, and obviously kind of as above so below, and the masculine feminine conscious subconscious narrative overlay, so to say. But yeah, that was crazy. Tell me more about it.
Well, I didn't really do a deep dive on the whole history of the day and everything like that and its significance, but I mean, obviously, like we said, we were talking about last year's Super Bowl first, and the Chiefs versus the Eagles, and how that was. I interpreted that as a king kill ritual. Arrowhead representing the spirit of destiny, eagle representing the phoenix, and which is Christ. And I showed DeMar Hamlin's jacket with the crucifixion on it and everything. Yeah, and of course everyone else is also noticing the same alchemical patterns, because like I said, like everything that I'm looking at, movies, shows, music, and everything, it's all about the rebirth. It's all about that spiritual conscious rebirth. And I actually have wait, I'm sorry, I have to switch the stream a second.
Some people were saying I was quiet like you were earlier, so hopefully this is a little better.
That if anything, that might be too loud. I don't know.
Okay.
That's real loud. But yeah, okay. I was gonna play this. This is from Isaac Weishaupt. He's a legend in the game of decoding all this pop culture stuff right here. So I actually wanted to start out by just playing a quick 1-minute video of just his summary of the whole thing, because
sure,
he really does give a good quick summary.
No, we can't hear him talking.
Okay.
We're not going to be able to hear audio through a browser.
Okay. I could just, you want me to just play it? It's only 1 minute. I could just repeat what he says, as he's saying it or something.
If that's yeah, you could just do a summary, or you could talk over him. That's fine too.
Right. So, I mean, basically he talked about, Usher took a glove off of his right hand, and left the glove on his left hand, signaling the left hand path. Mm-hmm. And so we had the symbolism here. Yeah, I mean, you could probably take this a few different ways. I mean, I don't know. Do you see anything when you see this?
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody posted that on Twitter, and I posted a image of the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah. I did see that.
Yeah, it's funny because one of my most recent posts on Twitter was about the evil eye and the kind of suspicion and the how the kind of concept of the evil eye existed on in every culture essentially, and that magic and these kind of suggestive arts, so to say, the darker arts, that every culture understood this and kind of had its own different method for dealing with the quote evil eye. So right when I saw that, I immediately thought of the wizard and warlocks concept that we talked about in the first episode. And like with all these things, the symbolic nature of everything and the symbolism always speaking to the subconscious, and the dark arts being very involved with speaking to your subconscious mind. But what do you see?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I was just going to add on to that and say that because we were talking about how music and the halftime show is at the core of this, and comes from the muses, right? And I was talking about all the goddess archetypes in the first show, and then we're going to be revisiting that again, of course. So, well, he did align it with, so there's this image too. So you see the 1 in the center with the 2 on the sides, right? So, and he also talked about how Saturn was in opposition to the sun. And then he linked it to the Taylor Swift Ice Spice video that, you know, every decoder has talked about pretty much.
It just takes us right back to 2020 when these teams faced and COVID, right? Because, excuse me, you know, we had right after the Super Bowl, obviously 2020, COVID kicked off, right? And we had the same teams facing. And after you finish talking about this, I'll present a little comparison of 2020 to 2024. But yeah, the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in December of 2019, and then, you know, a few months later you had COVID start. We're looking at a very, very, very potent sort of mirroring to that time frame with where we're at right now. So I take it as the kind of oppositional symbolism there.
Yeah, and of course people everyone's talking about disease X at the moment too, right?
Yeah.
And
yep.
And the symbolism with the 19 too. I mean, we could even talk about that real quick because, you know, I said that in the beginning that the score is 19-19 going in overtime, and then it finished 47 total points. The 49ers score was 22, added up to 4, and then the Chiefs had 25, added up to 7. But then both of them combined, also 22 and 25 is 47. So both ways you looked at it, it ended up being 47.
We talked about the prime number 211. I'm not sure if we covered that so much in the first episode, but we shared a bunch about that in private in our DMs before we went onto the video format. So I'm not sure if we dived into that, but that was crazy. I mean, we talked exactly about that. So to see that happen was very interesting. There are a few good posts, you know, shout out Brother Berg. You know, on Twitter, his numerology is par excellence, so to say. And he broke that down too. So it was pretty cool to see a lot of what we were talking about being taken and like broken down to a very microscopic level, so to say. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, well, because this is what we talked about in the first show. And see, I don't want to steal a shine here because although I did talk about the 47 numerology with the Super Bowl,
yeah,
I had a friend of mine specifically predict that the exact score total would be 47 points before the game started. Like the odds of that are, if you know gambling, you should know. Yeah, that's like a plus 300,000 or something. You know.
Yeah, hopefully he put some money down on that.
Right. But yeah, so because I was talking about the symbolism with like the cross and the 4 across representing the heart chakra, and then the 7 vertical representing the crown, and the union, the alchemical implication there. And then, you know, the Masonic compass set to 47 degrees. And then, you know, we talked about, you know, could be 47th president this year. You know, there's some theories about that.
Before we move on from the number 19.
Yeah. Stick to go ahead.
I had some information I wanted to talk about real quick.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Because we talked about this too, that the number 19 kept popping up, and obviously 1 and 9, right? It's in my name. It's in all my handles 1 through 9. In analog, right? The kind of physical realm is described as existing between the numbers 1 and 9. I talked about how we were moving from the Silver Gate of the Mississippi River, the Nile, so to say, the kind of the Great River. You can think of that as the feminine aspect to the kind of placenta idea. And there's a bunch of symbolism in St. Louis, the Silver Gate, right? The arch, right? Arc, Janus symbolism, very potent there, as well as they have a bunch of baby fetus symbolism right there in the park for the archway there in St. Louis, and it's known as the Silver Gate. And we were moving through, kind of following the highway out of St. Louis into Kansas City, and you have these 2 alchemical kind of combinations again, as we talked about with the gold of Golden Gate, the sun and the moon, and in between you could think of them as 1 through 9. You could think of 1 as birth in a sense. Again, this is symbolic, and we find ourselves in the center of that in Las Vegas, the city of sin, the city of the material world. Again, very Saturnian, because that symbology is very potent there. And finding, again, you're bringing the Golden Gate and the Silver Gate, even though we're talking about Kansas City, so it's not quite the same, but the symbolism is there.
Yeah.
And, 1 and 9, again, duality, because you could think of 19 as the material world. And so you have the two opposing, kind of the mirrors of each other again. And an author who I really love has done the best breakdown of the number 19 that I've ever found. His name's David Ewing Jr. And I'm going to share just a little synopsis of some of his work and what he found in the number 19. I could do just a show just talking about the number 19 from his perspective. I'm just going to read a few that stuck out to me. So the number 19 is the atomic number of potassium, and it's the 19th, and the 19th prime number is 67. In Islamic tradition, there are 19 angels guarding hell, and the day of resurrection is said to be heralded by 19 trumpets. The Quran mentions the number 19 as a witness to the truth of its message, and some Islamic scholars have identified various patterns and structures in the text that are based on multiples of 19. The number 19 has been associated with various esoteric and mystical traditions, such as the number of the sun in the tarot and the number of petals on the heart chakra in Hinduism, and the number of degrees in the inner circle of the Masonic order. The number 19 is considered a lucky number in some cultures, such as Korean and Vietnamese, and is associated with success and good fortune. The word 19 is the longest word in the English language that can be spelled with alternating consonants and vowels. The game of golf, there are 19 holes in a round of golf, with 18 holes on the course and one additional 19th hole typically located in the clubhouse. So I could go on and on and on and on. It's pretty insane. If you guys are familiar, I would check out David Ewing Jr. He has a YouTube video just on the phenomenon that is the number 19. But there are so many potent numbers in this. So again, get back to where you were talking about 47.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say with the number 19 too. I mean, this one could be a little bit of a reach. I wasn't even going to bring this up, but I know Deebo Samuel, number 19 on the 49ers. He went down during the game with like a injury that looked bad. Like people thought he was easily done. And then he came back in and was playing pretty well, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first time you were telling me about the number 19, you were also telling me about the movie Dark Tower. And I remember it being the passcode, right? To go through the portal 1919. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and it's 11. It's 101. It exists in so many places. It's kind of the introduction, right? What's your first course when you're starting off? If you were to take magic, introduction to magic, right? Magic 101. We talked about that number, the portal, the two towers. Neo's apartment number 101. It's in so many movies. But yeah, the Dark Tower, man, we could just. Again, we got to start doing our video breakdown series here soon, because that list is just getting longer and longer, and that's certainly one of them. But yeah, before I wander off, let's keep progressing along with what you were presenting here with 47.
Yeah, well, there wasn't a way more I was going to say, but I was just going to say that 47 adds up to 11, right? So
right.
Then you have.
And I remember you mentioning this to me and in the first episode when we talked about the cross. Again, kind of the cross on Usher's back, Christ carrying the cross. The cross is also very in geomantical and geometry and symbology. It's kind of considered the cross of nature. Man dies on the 4-dimensional cross, the kind of hypercube in a sense. And yeah, the peach, which we talked about a little bit too.
Yeah, and I know all the heart symbolism has been something I've been just noticing everywhere, and
you mentioned the heart chakra, and then again the number 19 in Hinduism being related to the heart as well.
Yeah, and so on the first episode we were talking about DeVar Hamlin, the guy whose heart stopped and had to be resuscitated on the field. it was a really crazy thing that he was actually known for. Like one of his trademark things was making the heart sign all the time with his hands, and like he would incorporate that into his, his businesses, like branding, social media, stuff like that, before he had the heart issue. And then after it happened, it just blew up and became a whole thing that the whole league was doing. And then Taylor Swift, so there's these articles that say that Taylor Swift popularized the hand heart, which I don't think that's true, but I think it was around before her.
For people to think that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, in Asian cultures, that's been around for at least very popular, I would say, for at least a decade. But yeah, they want it to be her who popularized it, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so you have her and Kelsey making the heart signs back and forth. But the last thing I was going to say on the 47, before we move on, was the way I was looking at this, because again, remember the first episode I was talking about how these Super Bowls just seem to be so linked with all the programming and everything. So I thought about it and I realized, like, okay, well, you have the Chiefs in the center, and then they play the East Coast team, and then they take out the West Coast team, right? So it's the two pillars right there. So I was trying to decide who was going to win the game, and that was like the last thing that I thought about. That I was like, you know what? There was one other thing too that I will bring up later, but I thought, okay, well, I guess the Chiefs represent the middle path here, and then
absolutely,
and then, yep. And then you have the 101 again, of course, and then Usher, like I said before, played his 101th show during the halftime Super Bowl show because he played a residency in Vegas and played 100 shows prior. So the way all the numbers added up was, as crazy as we could have possibly predicted.
Yeah. I mean, certainly something that was probably the underlying kind of synopsis of our first conversation, was that this is all, so heavy in the numerology, right? So heavy. And I couldn't believe, it was like, if I was a betting man, like just based off the numbers alone, you could, easily have walked away with quite a significant amount of money. It's just obviously we've been discussing the kind of storyline that's goes very deep, right, symbolically as well as numerology and all of that. But yeah, I like that breakdown. I never really thought of it quite like that. Kansas City facing off against the Eagles and the 49ers. Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because I actually, I don't want to take too much credit again, because I heard somebody else have this idea before, that the two coasts representing the two pillars, and something about the fact they're like Austin, Texas is almost like this new like hub in the middle of the country, where it's like there's like a lot of like these, I guess you could say, I don't know what words you would want to use for the Joe Rogan, the Elon Musk, the Alex Joneses, whatever, the breakaway civilization.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was all I had to say on that. But
chief, the etymology of chief is capital city. It's also symbolic of the head. So, hearing the middle path description, I think that's really potent.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess we could shift over to this right here. So obviously the first video I was just talking about all the goddess implications, and how that relates to the rebirth and everything like that, and then subconscious and everything. And I talked about how I saw Taylor Swift representing the Isis archetype, and I linked it with like all the rebirth symbolism from past music. And I even linked it to the number 13 and this idea that, this belief that Mary Magdalene was the 13th disciple and was actually filling the Isis archetype.
Right.
And then how that fits in with the Super Bowl too. Again, 49ers 13, Super Bowl 58 13, all that. And
yeah. I mean, you have Isis in Mississippi, and on old maps, the Mississippi was called the River Isis. So the St. Louis, Silvergate archway, the entrance, and it being on the Mississippi, again, that's why the goddess symbolism was so prevalent, just from that standpoint alone, let alone where we went into the actual kind of artistic expressions that were going on. I remember I've seen a few clips of the Ice Spice stuff from the Super Bowl, and I mean, it's pretty blatant, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny because, obviously I'm one of those people who actually has to consume a lot of this stuff a lot of the time, the stuff that everyone else wants to actually avoid.
Yeah.
But there's certain artists where like I try to hold out as long as I can. So like Ice Spice is one of those where like I just like try to just not click on anything of hers. But then with the Super Bowl, I didn't have a choice, and I just had to listen to some of that. Anyway,
yeah, I've always joked around that you kind of take the bullets for me.
Everyone says that, yeah.
Yeah, because I've removed myself for the most part from a lot of this stuff. So without you showing me some of these things, I would never see them, and especially when it comes to lyrics and music, because I rarely listen to music, especially from today's standpoint, and most of the music I listen to doesn't have lyrics. So yeah, without you got to have your hand kind of in the cookie jar, so to say, and you do a great job of that. And yeah, Ice Spice, oh my gosh, I avoided that person like the plague, and I can go my whole life never hearing about her, but obviously when it comes to this Super Bowl and breaking it down, that's somebody we got to talk about.
Yeah, so Ice Spice, her name is literally Isis. Her first name is Isis, and she was watching the game next to Taylor Swift. They were in the booth together.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Isaac was talking about the song they have together called Karma with the Saturn and Moon and everything like that.
Right.
And Brother Berg, again, I was thinking the same thing too. It's crazy too how there's millions of thoughts that pop into my head as these things are going on. But I got to filter them out. Obviously, I can't tweet out 100% of them because that would be crazy.
Yeah.
So this is one that I thought, and then Brother Berg says it. So Ice Spice was born January 1st, 2000. Same age as the millennium.
Yep.
And I was thinking the same thing. So it's like she represents, the 1/1 turn of the century Janus, ushering in the new age essentially.
Yeah, and the two faces, her orange hair and her black dress, very symbolic of Saturn and Jupiter. The black clothes of Saturn, the kind of priestly colors, so to say, right? Black is a color often associated with Saturn, as was orange is often a color associated with Jupiter. And again, the 1/1 Janus, the Bank of London has quite a amazing painting of Janus, and it has the two faces being represented as Jupiter and Saturn. So right when I saw her orange hair and the black shirt, and then of course the inverted cross hanging from her neck,
right.
kind of again touching on the cross symbolism that we talked about earlier, and the cross of matter, right? Saturn wanted to eat Jupiter, and he was tricked by his mother, and the kind of alchemical story of Saturn consuming his children, that we in a sense are light that are slowed down, and that's kind of the density story as we go from lead to gold, that transmutation that we talked about. Again, almost identical to what we're talking about with the Silver Gate, the archway of St. Louis, transiting towards the Golden Gate of San Francisco. Along the way, we're kind of partaking in this as above, so below story in the city of sin, right? Matter, physical matter, again, the kind of body of sin. And so there you are. You're showing the picture that I was speaking of with her and the horns.
And that's the blatant stuff that every account is putting out there that'll have hundreds of thousands of millions of views and stuff like that.
Yeah,
which, rightfully so.
Right. Yeah. And there's always a different way to read into that. But what do you have there? I wanted to read that. Read that for me real quick.
Sin in Mesopotamian religion, the god of the moon Sin was the father of the sun god Shamash, and in some myths of Ishtar, goddess of Venus, and with them formed an astral triad of deities.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and then Vegas is known for the 8-pointed star, right? The star of Ishtar.
Yep.
So, yeah. And then I did want to pull up too. So here we have Ice Spice in this. This is the Karma music video with Taylor Swift, and this is the Venus symbolism, the goddess again, and also Lucifer.
Yep.
And I was going to save this for later. I don't know if I could click to it now or not, or if I'm switching.
Sure, you're showing it. Yeah, talk to me.
But yeah, so when they pull out, everyone talks about like the Saturn and the Moon symbolism in this, but I was looking at it again and I realized that there actually is an eclipse here too. So it's not just like them showing the moon. They're actually showing the moon eclipsing the sun here too, from the point of view of Saturn. And I didn't even realize, like, I had to, remind myself that was the case. Yeah. And,
Saturn's about crowns and kingship and royalty and again, going with the chiefs, the king. Chief also comes from the word meaning head, and city, capital city. Capitoline hill of Rome, also very Saturnian. But yeah, what else did you see in the video?
Oh man, well, obviously she's talking about karma, and we have
the Oz reference here.
Yeah, right. The yellow brick road, the duality. And then this is meant to, the song is it's kind of ridiculous. It's basically, the song is saying that it's talking about just all the people from her past that have wronged her and how they're just going to have to face karma. And the lyrics are something like, I keep my side of the street clean. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, talking about how like she's like representing like the light side of everything. Like, right. And then I guess Ice Spice would be the opposition of that, the degenerate music, right?
Yeah, I mean, for anybody familiar with The Wizard of Oz, right, that is, you could consider it one of the premier alchemical movies out there, right? You have the wizard, the scheming man behind the scenes, right? Manipulating the public, fooling the people to believe that he's benevolent and wise, and the kind of path that she's led down, confronting the wicked witch. But yeah, very interesting.
And then,
I haven't seen this video, obviously, so this is my first time seeing the symbology here. And
then the Wizard of Oz, you have emeralds. You have Emerald City, and the implication there, Emerald City's in the center, right? So I don't know about you, but I've always thought like the Emerald City, the green, again, is coming back to the heart chakra, like the sacred center. And I don't know if you had some sort of tie into like radium or something, because I know you always tie radium in any green symbolism or anything like that. But I don't know, because there's some stuff with it. Like they have like the water, right, that makes you forget your memory. And what's it called in the Wizard of Oz? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, I can't remember what the water's called.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, we're in Las Vegas, and we talked about this a little bit, I think, behind the scenes privately. I don't think we mentioned in the first episode, but there were several commercials referencing nuclear tests and bombs, and I kind of nonchalantly, without thinking about it, one of my posts on Superbowl, might have been my only post, I think I mentioned getting your Gatorade ready. And I referenced an article from the late 1800s where they were drinking this radium drink that glowed in the dark, and they called it the sunshine drink. And me and one of my friends have talked about this privately for a lot, and we've mentioned it a few times on different shows, but we've talked about the history of Gatorade, and that Gatorade was really using radium spring water was one of the most potent main ingredients. And radium has this really incredible ability to like ultra hydrate the human body. It kind of like primes the energetic structure of the cell, the water cell. It's kind of like structuring water. It allows the body to, in a sense, overhydrate and actually absorb the water, because your body, if it doesn't have the, if the water doesn't have the proper mineral content, so on and so forth, you'll basically just pee it all out. You won't even absorb it, because water in the human body is far different than the water we consume, at least most of the water that humans consume today. But again, it being a Las Vegas, the kind of governmental subterranean capital of the world, right? From a, Area 51, whatever, hidden mysteries sense. And in my Anomalous America episode, I talk a lot about that in Nevada. It's been so long, I can't even remember. But yeah, the radium links were really huge. Again, the Gatorade, which has been a sponsor of the NFL for I don't even know how long. The gator is symbolic of Saturn as well, the alligator. It existed on many crests with Saturn, the alligator, kind of the creature of time, right? Because alligators can live, and they can, like, the story goes that the alligator is the one surviving dinosaur because it kind of like a cockroach was able to survive through these cataclysmic events and see all these transitory parts of the human story. Kind of like Saturn, right? With the scythe, the harvest, because we talked about that. We talked about the cyclical nature of these events. The Super Bowl comes around once a year, and Saturn's out there harvesting. You could think of that from a spiritual, energetical vantage point as well. But why don't you talk a little bit more about the video, and I'll pull up an article or two, and then I can reference them really quick that tie in with Las Vegas.
Okay, well, I guess we could shift to, I mean, there's so much symbolism here. So, I mean, we had the Lucifer symbolism earlier, the light bringer, light bulb here. This one is another one that I forgot about. Look at this one. You're gonna have a field day with this one. You see that?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you want to take over from there?
Well, people already in this chat, probably this is more my bread and butter, but I talk a lot about giants. I talk a lot about what are the Nephilim, and this kind of interesting correlation between, the world was once populated by giants, and that, these Nephilim met their demise, and some of our mountain ranges are actually petrified titans. Right, we talked about the symbolic nature of the actual NFL from that Hebrew Bible dictionary, and that NFL means Nephilim, or the kings, or the fallen ones, the sacred ones, and the overlays there with the Titans, the teams. Right, you just look at the names of these different teams in the NFL. They nod to this kind of scriptural narrative quite strongly, and seeing her there again, I have never seen this video, so it's very powerful. But shout out one of my good friends, Stellium 7. He lives in a part of Spain right outside of a mountain called Mount Go, and he's done quite an incredible video series showing that this mountain is a titanic elephant. We're talking a mountain is a petrified giant elephant, mammoth, and the evidence for me is quite undeniable. But yeah, so again, when we preface this and you brought up the link there, could you just click on that so people can see it?
Yep.
So this is a clip I shared with PsyClops here, and I've shared a ton of excerpts from this book. This book is incredible, kind of like etymology.com. This is like my go-to. I bounce around between this, Gematrinator a lot, obviously, to get the kind of number side of things. But when it comes to these kind of corporate 3-letter agencies, it's quite incredible because, again, the removing of vowels and so on and so forth, what you can break things down to. And here it is. This book is from the early 1800s, you guys. And here they have that the NFL is where the term Nephilim comes from, those three letters. And as I stated, it's the great men of the Titans and devils, the fall and fail. And they go on to say, does it harken back to the turtle nation of yore? Now, when you look at Aboriginal culture, the turtle is very symbolic of this kind of titanic time, right? Where mountains were giant men that fell during some kind of war with the, Mount Olympus, the Olympians and the Titans. And it's crazy to think, but it seems that many music videos and movies and other things linked to this being more of a reality than our minds are able to grasp. And that, we come from a time where there were men so large they were as big as mountains. And same thing with trees. I've talked about titanic trees, and that many mountain ranges today are just the remnants of these giant trees. And that's a lot of biblical stories there. Enoch and a few other of the biblically endorsed texts talk about a time that's kind of vapor canopy time where man and beast and fauna were mega. I mean, absolutely mega, miles and miles tall. And then the Tower of Babel story is kind of correlating, I think, to this time period. But I'll ramble, so get back to the video, please.
No, yeah, that was a wild one, because again, that was something we talked about in the first video that I actually forgot about, and then you go and see it again, because here we have her. This is the one we talked about in the first video, her anti-hero song, which was like the main song of her last album. She's a giant in that one too. And then with Rihanna last year, remember, everyone realized that she was pregnant at the Super Bowl. And, there's like some Watcher stuff. There's like some Watcher stuff going on with like her previous album that came out most recently to her Super Bowl performance. I don't need to read all of it, but then somebody mentioned, somebody said that their friend or brother or something, here, I have it here. My brother said Alicia Keys looked pregnant during the Super Bowl. And I don't want to jump ahead because there's a lot of stuff we can get to with the halftime show too far. But
right.
But Alicia Keys, I just clicked on her Instagram because I was curious what I would see there. And she has this whole, whatever it is, venture that they're using the word, they're calling giant. And it's some art thing, but the artists are giants, the people are giants, and they're just talking about this over and over again. And this was her most recent post on Instagram too, before the Super Bowl.
Crazy.
And, yeah. And so, but yeah, I guess we could go into the halftime show then. I might as well, if we're talking about it now.
Absolutely. That's going to be a big chunk of material for sure.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So we were talking about like the idea that the goddess was going to be the theme of the Super Bowl and the rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew Usher was performing the halftime show. So I was wondering, okay, so how is Usher going to fit that narrative? Like what role is Usher going to play? Because,
right.
People are going to argue with me in the comments, but he's a man, I guess. So Usher, obviously though, but I was thinking beforehand, like, and I said too in the first video, like if you just watch how they play with the genders, how they play with the sexes, you could often just see what messages they're putting across symbolically. Mm-hmm. And so once I saw that Alicia Keys was going to be there too, because I was wondering, I actually had a feeling beforehand, like I bet they're going to bring some female singer on the stage with him, and then it ends up being Alicia Keys, and maybe that was announced beforehand. I didn't check, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But so, and then Usher represents like the feminized male, right? Like the inversion, right? Because I mean, you see his outfits, you see the way he dances, so on and so on. And so in alchemy, you have the idea of the Red King and the White Queen representing the masculine and feminine.
Right.
And then you have Alicia Keys dressed in all red. And remember, Rihanna was dressed in all red the year prior. So that's a repeating theme. And then you have Usher in the outfit that's just as feminine, all white. And then the idea of, so you think about the name Alicia Keys. Alicia is like Alice, right? Alice in
Right.
Wonderland.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, journeying down into the subconscious, like everything we talked about in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then her last name, obviously, I don't need to explain the symbolism there. Keys,
Yep.
yeah,
And
portals.
I have seen
Janice.
that. I've seen that picture right there. Someone sent that to me a long time ago. And then
Yeah.
the solar crown. There was the one there on the left.
Yeah,
Someone sent me that one too.
exactly.
The kind of Ishtar, in a sense, the solar deity. Yeah. Yeah, the keys. Yeah, Alice
exactly.
Keys. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and then Janice has the 2 keys, right? And
Right.
so this I'm sorry, I got a little cold, guys. So, and also Wi-Fi issues also on me. But anyway, so this album was actually broken up into 2 parts. They have those double albums, and it was written from 2 different perspectives, basically. One was written from her like past self, like the way she was making music beforehand, and then one was like her like reinventing herself and was like a new version, basically. And yeah, I remember when just seeing the symbolism when this came out too, and paying attention to it at the time, and just never getting around to like looking into it too much. But then the way that it came back up in this obviously just made so much sense.
Yeah. That's. Yeah, when
Right.
I saw that she joined him on stage, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
you got Usher, a key carrier, a doorman, a gatekeeper,
yeah, exactly.
and then Alice Keys. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then because people watch the Super Bowl too, and they're like, sometimes they wonder how they pick these halftime shows, because a lot of the artists you pay attention to, like a lot of them are irrelevant for a long period of time beforehand before they end up doing these Super Bowl shows.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't have to tell you that it just goes into whoever's just going to fit the ritual, whoever's going to fit their symbolism.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There has to be a lot of power and prowess behind the artist. There has to be a culmination of their work and all these other things that they've done, their album. I mean, think of all the dimensionality that goes into this, right? Because to someone that's just tuning in, and welcome everybody, thanks for being here, that may just see this one album cover, it may seem like, but then again, as we mentioned before, once you dive into this kind of gateway, portal, key carrier, Janice material, you'll find it is wrapped up in almost all of the kind of social engineering, or whatever you want to deem it, everywhere. I mean, from COVID to whatever you want to talk about, really, politics, it's there. And nothing was more like in your face than the numerology and the symbology of this Super Bowl.
Yeah. And yeah, just it's so blatant. I mean, I learned about half the stuff just from like you DMing me, and then just me seeing it for myself, like just because it was that clear.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm a little bit out of order, but something I wanted to just jump back to real quick before we keep going forward. The Taylor Swift role in the Rebirth. So I don't know if you saw this story, but this was in the summer of last year. Oh, I actually did mention this to you, but so Taylor Swift fans were saying they were suffering from post-concert amnesia after getting too excited during the singer's Eras tour. And there were tons and tons of articles and stories about this. So it wasn't like just a couple of people were saying it. It was a lot of her fans were saying it. And the quotes are really, really interesting. I know it was there, but it feels like it was a dream. And then, of course, they try to provide an explanation for it too, as if this is something that happens like on a consistently regular basis,
like
to the level
every
that happens.
concert. Oh, well, there's a percentage of every person that goes home from a concert, any concert, and they feel this way. I mean, it's kind of silly.
Yeah. And so, but like so the language they were putting in the articles too, like the quotes from people specifically saying it was like an out-of-body experience, as though it didn't really happen to me. And I don't know if it says it in this article, but there are people saying like it felt like they were in a trance and whatnot. So,
well, in the name of the tour, I mean, the Eras tour, Eras, reckoning of time, the beginning of a kind of a stage. So people are missing time or suffering the ability to remember time. Again, amnesia. It's kind of symbolic of the human race in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I actually didn't pull this one up, and I probably could find it, but they brought back the eagle symbolism into this year's Super Bowl. So one of the first commercials was, it was like the Eagles players, like actually in their like uniforms and stuff, like flying through the air like they were birds. And they were talking about how like the migration of the eagle represents like the change of seasons and stuff like that. So again, you know, referencing that shift in eras and everything.
Yep. Yeah, migrations. Yeah, and I remember we talked a little bit about the bird symbolism that existed even here, right? I can't remember exactly what it was in relation to, unfortunately.
Right.
It's Vegas, right? Even though we're told
we're talking about. Sorry, you go ahead.
The definition of Vegas would mean like a fertile area between two valleys, or between two hills, a fertile valley, essentially. But then you look at like Vegas and Vega, and if I remember correctly, I probably should just pull it up so I can say it right. I had it here somewhere. Okay, yeah. So the etymology, yeah. So perfect. Look at like Vega means several things. It means the bright northern star, right? You could see the Lucifer Venus symbolism there, but it's also talking about Lyra, which we mentioned in the first episode, and it also relates to the eagle of the desert, or the falling vulture.
Yeah, and I remember I linked the vulture concept to the mother goddess, and then also the fact that Kanye was releasing vultures at the same time, but the vulture's logo, I mean, you look at it,
the double-headed eagle.
Yeah, the double-headed eagle, the double-headed phoenix, you know, again, like talk about all the same things we're talking about. And and you know, Kanye is a Gemini, and you know,
gates, duality.
Yeah. And of course, I was talking about Kanye's rebirth in the beginning too. And he gives you these split personalities where one day he's, you know, the biggest Christian in the world, and the next day he's the opposite, you know.
And the two faces, I mean, vulture, the etymology, if I remember correctly, which I should probably just pull up, but I think the etymology is like to break or fracture or something like that, to tear. Correct me in the chat. I'm pretty sure. You pull it up since you're sharing your screen. Yeah, go to etymology. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So the two heads, think of it like the kind of tearing of reality, or the blending of reality, right? The masculine, feminine, the conscious and subconscious. And of course the black album art, you know, very Saturnian. The prima materia, so to say.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because we're talking about the masculine and feminine and everything, and he's got some crazy stuff going on right now with the girl that he's currently in a relationship with. Where have you seen any of this? Have you seen any of these stories?
No.
So basically, this girl started dating him, and she was a designer for his company, and she started dating him, and then gradually over time, she started just dressing like more provocatively, to the point where she's just constantly completely just like naked walking around in public. And you know, obviously Kanye's like, you know, the fashion guy who's like, you know, pushing her into it and everything. And it's a lot of crazy stuff going on with, like, I don't know, the way it's all happening is very, very suspicious. And her name too. Let's see what her name is. Wait, this is great. Her name is Bianca Sensory. So it's the name translates to like white censorship, right? And that was his complaint before, and something I mentioned in the first video, like the idea that, you know, Kim Kardashian or the celebrity partner is like possibly your handler or something like that. But it's like inverted, because it looks the other way around, where like Kanye is like controlling her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But man, I mean, Yeah, sorry.
It's always in the name. I mean, again, etymology is like my one-stop shop sometimes when it comes to just looking at what these people's names are, because it's amazing the amount you can pull out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that when I first saw that, I was like, are you kidding me?
Well, yeah, and it's like Kanye.
Right. West.
Yeah. Kanye West, you know, the rising sun, or the setting sun, sorry. And it means Cain. Kanye just is a derivative of the name Cain. So you have the Cain and Abel overlay story, which is a really interesting one because the Mesoamerican Cain and Abel story is quite different from the biblical one. You know, the Cain and Abel story is that this brother is jealous of his other brother's lover, and that lover is Isis, and that he kills his brother because he's jealous that she chose his brother and not him. Kind of a Kardashian overlay. You know, again, I don't follow that too much, but I kind of get the gist of it. That it seems that there's a bit of that there, right? And I know that people have linked me some of the Isis Kardashian symbolism before.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I have heard you say that, and I was thinking that there has been times where like Kanye's just going on tirades against like saying like trying to expose so and so for either hanging out or getting with Kim or something like that, and just sounding extremely just jealous and just losing his mind on social media and stuff like that. And
yeah, you're kind of the Eve overlays too. You know, the Horror Babylon connections there are pretty powerful as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I know we're kind of jumping around to different things, but I guess so. Do you want to talk about like the pyramids and in Vegas and like some of like the Egyptian symbolism and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'll follow your lead.
Yeah, well,
before we move on, is there anything else you wanted to cover for the halftime show, or was that pretty much it?
Yeah, I guess.
Like, so you kind of talked about the alchemical story, right? And the red and white symbolism. Yeah, I guess you did kind of cover it. Yeah. I
don't think there's too much left for the halftime show. I'm trying to remember. But
what song did he sing? Because I don't even know what song that was.
Dude, I'll be honest with you. I'm the one who should be on top of this. Usher's one of those people like R&B and stuff. I just don't know it. I know the song where they say "Yeah" a million times by Usher, and that was like the song they closed with. Oh, there was they did emphasize Atlanta a lot. They closed out. Yeah, they closed out saying like I'm from the A, from the A, from the A over and over and over again. And we were talking about like the Atlantis correlation in the first show.
Right. Yeah. And, again, saying the A, you got the alpha and the omega, kind of, again, the silver and sun, the Christ symbolism with the sun, the A. I'm from the A. That's just kind of like a solar nod.
Yeah.
I do remember him saying that.
Yeah. And I mean, the last thing I was going to say about the halftime show possibly, and this is one of those ones where some people might not get what I'm saying with this one or agree, but the most popular song that I've seen on this album is the song "Ruin" that was a single beforehand. And in the song he's saying like he's blaming like trauma from a past relationship, from a past partner, for the reason that he has to like fill this hole by getting with like different girls on like a nightly basis, basically.
Right.
And in this one video too here, he's like snapping his fingers and like mind controlling them. Right. And so what I took from this, because I was thinking this beforehand, just based on everything that I've been tracking, is all these all the goddess like feminine implications, and that relating to like the anima, and the idea that like a past relationship of his is still like having this control over him, and the way he thinks and views and sees the opposite gender still to this day. And of course, and then he did him and Alicia Keys were like, they were obviously holding hands or like kind of like up on each other, like in like a somewhat sexual way, even though Alicia Keys is married. And it was kind of random and people were a little flustered about that. But yeah, so I don't know, I just see all the symbolism tying in with that. But that's stuff that I'll have to just in the future with everything breaking down, just explain all the ties in and where I'm getting these ideas from and where I see them. And like for example, like real quick, I could just say like one movie that I want to decode that will, in my opinion, explain this. And then, another good example too is I would even say Dark when you think about it, because I forget what the father's name is, but basically he was basically like a player back in the day, right? And when he goes back in time, he has to like, learn how to be more, compassionate and empathetic. And I was also going to say that, like Back to the Future, Marty goes back in time and he has to understand like the masculine and feminine energy from like his mother and father, and their relationship and everything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the weak nature of his father. And
right, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, once we get to that stuff and do those full breakdowns and everything like that, it'll really support what I'm saying. But yeah, I guess that is what I was going to finish with the Super Bowl halftime show. But I was going to bring this up too, the idea that so in Star Wars you have Princess Leia represents like that archetypal story of, again, like you could tie this to the anime too. And I know like even like all like the Jordan Peterson videos and stuff like that, or like, obviously, he talks about like these archetypal stories and Luke and Leia, the two twins separated at birth, and then she's trapped in the Death Star, which is like the moon, right? Mm-hmm. And then they have to go rescue her from that. Mm-hmm. And so I was just thinking about that and how that ties with everything, because again, the stadium, the Allegiant Stadium, the Super Bowl was played in, is nicknamed the Death Star because it's like all blacked out. Looks real intimidating. And then how that ties in, like, again, like all the moon goddess stuff we've been talking about this entire time. And then even like the new Star Wars, they replaced the new Skywalker is Rey. But anyway, that's a whole other tangent that I'm trying not to waste too much time on.
Yeah, it's kind of the same tie-in that we're making with the halftime show and this masculine, feminine, dualistic nature of reality and the kind of foreshadowing to the subconscious. And yeah, the Death Star being in Sin City, and it was called Allegiance again, right? Stadium?
Allegiant, yeah.
Allegiant.
Yeah, I could pull it up.
Do the etymology on that for me after you're done.
Yeah, I could do that too. And I want to pull up the logo real quick first, because
I remember the logo is all,
but it looks like the sun rising over the horizon, in my opinion, right? Mm-hmm. You see it right here, mm-hmm. Which will be Horus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're always going to have the sun and moon, the two most potent symbols that really there are. And of course, those being masculine, feminine, and, light and dark. I think we mentioned Joseph Campbell a little bit in the first episode.
Yeah.
For anybody that wants to pursue kind of a deeper meaning of these ideas that we're throwing around, and the idea of archetypes, and that there are like kind of a base code, an archetypal nature to everything. I would strongly recommend Joseph Campbell. Here with 1,000 Faces, many of his books tie in with this quite in a manner better than I could explain in this short little video. So if you want more information on that and kind of where I get a lot of my references, what's the guy's name that did Star Wars again? I always forget.
George Lucas.
I mean, George Lucas verbatim, I believe, quoting
Yep.
that he based all of the Star Wars material on Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, he said that. Yeah.
And he's not the only one. There's a lot of people. So yeah, when you see Leia, and again the two twins separated at birth, and how they're kind of consciously tied to one another in a weird way, and the rescuing of the feminine, the hero's journey, right? Another great book. But yeah, the story is told right in it's kind of the idea of movies and theater and all of these things are really just reenacting the your own hero's journey. And but yeah, the witches and the dark arts and all these things. What do you have here? Oh yeah, I saw this post, of course. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you talked about this a little bit, the spear.
Yeah. Yeah. Representing the sacred feminine, god of fertility.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I mean, this stuff is always a fertility ritual too. And again, that's what I was saying. Like, you know, Usher and Alicia Keys are like, you know, acting that way, even though she's married.
Yeah, and you had commented to me, maybe it was privately or publicly, I can't remember which. We were talking about everyone was wearing black, and it kind of seemed like people were attending a funeral in a way. What was your take on that? And I wanted to share this really quick, so I'm going to share screen really quick, okay? And I'll give it right back to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh
yeah,
I'm sure you saw this. You know, Nick Hinton, our boy. So I'll just read a few of these for you guys. I'm sure you can see it, and you can pause the video if you want to read them all. This is a quick little breakdown, and there's way more to this. I found one on Reddit that was like 4 times as big as this one. It shows the correlations again between 2020 and 2024 Super Bowl, which we talked a little bit about in the first episode, and how potent this was going to be because it's mirroring this same date. COVID-19, 19 again, the mirrorings of the double ones, and kind of like this loosh, this kind of wrapping energetical feedback loop that's being created in a way through this ritual. And but yeah, this list is again a short version. There are longer ones out there, and it's insane. Again, I mentioned statistical anomalies, and once you start to get to a point where the probability of these things correlating the way they do, it's in the 1 in billions. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. So again, the mirrors with 2020 and 2024 are crazy. And yeah, and at the bottom you see COVID starts in March. Does COVID-2 start in March? Do we have another pandemic-like event coming? At the start of 2020, I was doing a radio show with a Danish friend of mine, and we were doing a video on breaking down the 2020 conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. And Pluto being involved was kind of a nod to some kind of I don't want to say pandemic, but something along those lines. Pluto can add a bit of a the word's escaping me. A kind of medical emergency, a plague of sorts. Pluto can add a bit of that type of energy to this mix, and then when you have it with the 2 conjunctions, it's quite potent. And although we don't have that same thing happening here, there seems to be a pretty powerful correlation with that. And I think that there's, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, there's definitely some hyping up of this kind of the medical one-liners are really kind of back in the forefront. And someone on my Twitter had sent me a commercial. What's the guy's name who's dating Taylor Swift?
Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce. And didn't we do an etymology of his name? It was quite interesting, if I remember correctly. But someone sent me a commercial where he was a Pfizer commercial he was in. And I was like, man, this, don't be surprised if this guy's the next one to drop dead or something along those lines. I can't remember exactly what I said. But then people were commenting to me like, it looks like he's showing up to his own funeral or somebody's going to die. And that's why I mentioned the clothing and what your takeaway was, if anything, from the clothing that seemed to be a prominent. I saw so many people wearing all black. It was pretty crazy.
I don't know. I mean, well, you think about all the colors, right? I mean, you had the red and white during the halftime show, and then the two teams, red and yellow over red and gold, right? Like, there wasn't one color involved that wasn't, representing, alchemy. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I did see people say that the people dressed in all black. I don't know, because during the halftime show, they did like so many outfit changes and so many like they were swapping in different dancers and stuff to the point where like at some point you just had every color out there at once. So I don't know. For me to give more of an in-depth analysis about it all would probably be tough. But I did have something I wanted to share too, because you were talking about one second. So you were talking about Travis, and we talked about the etymology, and so Travis means to traverse, to cross, and then we also said like
yeah, that's what it was.
We said like and then like, there was another it was like toll keeper too or something like that. But it was crazy because when we talked about in the first show, this is just how crazy it all is. Like I linked that to like Travis Scott and like some of the symbolism I've seen from him.
Oh yeah,
and,
for sure. Yeah,
how the cross is his logo, and then post game they share a photo online of them together, Travis Scott partying with Travis Kelce after the Super Bowl. Isn't that crazy? The two Trav 2 times.
Of course. So Trav, Traverse, Janus symbolism again. Yeah, what was it? I got to look it up again because I remember the last name comes from a root that was somewhere along the lines of to harvest or something like that. A harvest. Again, kind of what I was talking about with the Subterranean symbolism. And then if I remember correctly, somebody sent me a picture of him wearing all black walking into the Super Bowl. I may be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure he was wearing all black. And yeah, so will you actually, here it is. Okay. Travis. Yeah. To cross over, a name for a gatekeeper or a toll collector.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
Usher, almost an identical name for that. So you got Travis 2 times. So 2-time Travis, right? The dual game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you see, so that you mentioned the Oreo commercial, was that the one with like the aliens actually getting out of the UFO?
Yeah.
And they were they were talking about there were the 2 aliens in that one too. And they were talking about like there were numerology implications too, because they got out of the UFO and they were like, it was like I guess some hotel commercials or something, I don't know, but they were asking them how many like beds they would need or something, like 1 or 2, and they were debating if they need 1 or 2 beds. So again, you have the masculine and feminine, the 1 and the 2, and they're sitting there talking about the 2 numbers.
Yeah, I mean the name Travis. And I think when we did our Travis Scott talk, we broke down Scott and the where the surname came from, and it was something very similar. But yeah, again, why I can't tell you guys enough to look into etymology of names. I mean, it's just again, look at Usher, Alicia Keys, Travis Kelce. They're all names relating to kind of jumping the void, crossing the threshold, gateways, portals. And that's like probably one of the most potent symbols that we witnessed. And we were kind of calling that as being a very strong theme going into this whole thing. Again, the 2/11s, right? February 11th. There were many more examples of this, but yeah.
Yeah. And then again, like, so again, tying all that into, I'm sorry, I'm not sharing the screen. Here we go. So there were multiple doppelganger references, and we talked about that beforehand too, and that's exactly what you were just talking about right there. So they're talking about, there was this Brock Purdy who was the quarterback for the 49ers, a Brock Purdy doppelganger, but it wasn't even a man, it was a girl. So a female doppelganger.
Very Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker reference there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then again, because like in my analysis, I was saying the 49ers represented like the West Coast, like the feminine. And then here's another commercial. There are so many Tina Feys I could be. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Share this tab now. There are so many Tina Feys I could be. So I hired doubles to help me out. Splurgy Tina. You know, they talk about all her alternates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wild Tina. I mean, come on. Like, riding a white horse too. I mean,
yeah.
And then is that
it's a goat?
Yeah. Kneeling.
Not 100% sure, but it looks like one.
Yeah. And then again, we have so this was a funny one. So this was for movie Twisters, chasing tornadoes, and then all of a sudden we got twins, 2 tornadoes in the sky. Like,
yeah, crazy.
Twin symbolism again. There was more too. I think there was probably another one or two that I forgot. Just a real quick check, because I think you said till where I am 8. So how are you looking on time right now? Because
we got a little bit. We can go a little long, but yeah, let's probably 15-20 more minutes.
Okay. All right.
So whatever you want to prioritize, I'm down to follow.
Well, okay. I guess so. Just jumping off from where we are now, let's go into like some of the alien UFO stuff, Area 51.
Yeah, let's do it.
So yeah, so this was a thread I made before. So this is the rapper Freddie Gibbs, and you know this is one of the instances where I actually like the music that I'm decoding, but album called Soul Sold Separately. I don't know, maybe you see some on the Triple S, because they had a part of the album was, well,
and you have the two $signs often are referencing ISIS.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because they had
down. Yeah.
Welcome to the Triple S.
Oh, yeah, but yeah, they had this. The whole album was themed around Las Vegas, but not just Las Vegas. The two things we're talking about here. So once again, he looks in the mirror, and then he sees himself as the rabbit. And if you guys are familiar, that's the exact scene in the movie Donnie Darko, where you know Donnie looks in the mirror and sees the rabbit looking back at him. And once again, all the same things we're talking about here: rabbit, you know, subconscious, and Alice again, you know, following the rabbit down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, just like Neo, room 101. He leaves room 101. He exits his apartment to follow the white rabbit. You know, and the solar representation of the white rabbit as well.
Yeah, and so this album too was it was called he had a song and like the theme called Space Rabbit. And him and the rabbit are getting out. Oh wait, hold up. Here it is. Him and the rabbit crash land in a UFO in Las Vegas. And they get out. And I remember, so this was also right before there was that story of the actual UFO that landed in Vegas, and the person called the cops, and it was like a whole story. I guess it was last summer, but it was I remember it was May 1st when it happened, 5/1. So Area 51. It's also like the founding of the Illuminati, May 1st. But yeah, so the symbolism with this. So this is something I wanted to ask you about, because this is something I've been thinking about a lot, is the ties with them talking about aliens, invasions, like entities and stuff, and some, I don't know, archetypes of the unconscious, or entities that relate to that, or
and then the symbolism of the giants, right? And the video of Taylor where she's a giant, the return of the giants, right? Again, another name for the Nephilim was the fallen ones. Now fallen, again, as I mentioned earlier, an alchemical explanation kind of describes the soul journey into physical matter, that in a sense we're all fallen. We're all fallen in our light body, so to say, has been slowed down, led to gold, right? We've been reaped. Saturn consumed his children into physical form. And the lunar reference there is really powerful. Like you had already mentioned, again, the reference to Alice in Wonderland and the journey into the subconscious mind. And that picture again of Donnie Darko, the kind of concept again is the alien being kind of like your eternal altar in a way.
right.
And this is a very, very old reference. I believe the British Museum holds the obsidian mirror of the Aztecs. Now, the kings wore mirrors, and they spoke in describing mirrors. And essentially, their kind of sovereign commander was a deity that existed in their mirrors. So yeah, I think again, what are aliens? Are we talking about fallen giants? Are we talking about altars? These kind of interior, because again, it mentions titans and demons, the devils. Often the devil is referenced as your unacknowledged altar, that kind of second version of you that dwells inside. And so when you see people speaking into a mirror, it's kind of this acknowledging of that dualistic side of the hemispheres, the two brains. And but yeah, the crash landing, again, we talked about Vega and the symbology that goes into Vega falling from the stars, right? Because the Lucifer concept, because Vega's a nod essentially to that. Although they're talking about Lyra, the Lucifer references there are quite powerful. And so when you see how the bunny, you got a bunny in a spacesuit standing on the moon, right, with the sun in the background, space rabbit tour. It's kind of like several descriptions of the same symbolism.
Yeah, and there are ancients who identified the rabbit with the moon because you could see like a shape.
Yeah, on the moon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could see the shape of a rabbit on the moon.
And you mentioned Ishtar already. The Ishtar reference are really strong there. Again, Ishtar and Easter and the eggs and that ceremony is really powerful. And again, something I don't know if we talked about. I think I mentioned this on another show. But, this time of year, and the reason why the Super Bowl is when it is, one of the listeners in chat mentioned that Carnival has just started in Brazil, the biggest carnival in the world. And this time of year, Valentine's Day, was known as Lupercalia. And I believe another one of our listeners mentioned this. And so this kind of carnival show story has been going on around this time of year for hundreds of years. And No coincidence. The Super
Sorry.
Bowl is what it is. I just wanted to really quick say, CMA, thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. And Jen, thank you as well. Anyways, keep going. Yeah. So the crash landing in Vegas. What is your takeaway from the alien stuff?
Okay, so I was 100,000% already definitely thinking the same thing you were, and I'm happy that you said everything the way that you did. And then I was also our own personal altars, yes, but then also like, you know, thought forms like tulpas and you know, based on our life, our memories and everything like that. And this is from the Taylor Swift album. And this, I actually think this is the giant in this, and there's all the portal references and stuff. She talks about how all the people I've ghosted stand there in the room in like a physical form. And then of course you see the, you know, her ghosted past friend appearing when she looks into the mirror. She sees it right there. So again, it fits everything you're saying.
The octagon, the two lights.
Yeah. And I know, so, and then I can shift it over to this real quick too. So I was going to shift it over to Blink 182. Obviously, Tom DeLonge is like one of like the mainstream, you know, spokesperson for like the whole UFO disclosure movement, you know, working with all the CIA people and everything like that. And yeah, so they obviously weren't making any music forever, and then started to again. I don't know why this is. Well, you know, I guess the Wi-Fi is probably held up better than I was. Or here we go.
Yeah,
but yeah, so
great.
Okay, great. But yeah, so this was Blink 182's first song after their, you know, forever absence.
Yeah, I remember this post.
Yeah, so obviously we have all the rabbits again, and you know, they have him looking pretty crazy demonic, and he kisses the rabbit.
He's riding on the Ferris wheel, the wheel of time. You know, again, the moon being very symbolic of time.
Yeah, and it's at a circus, and you were just talking about the carnival, right? And the symbolism there. And I mean, like the jester. Right there. Oh, and then, you know, the forbidden fruit, you know, it's all the same stuff over and over again. And
yeah, and I've shared my opinions a little bit, especially from the kind of ideas of Julian Jaynes. Still my favorite synopsis of the Adam and Eve story from a psychological subconscious standpoint is his reference to the Eve and the consuming of the apple, that Adam and Eve, again, those two energies were banished from the garden where they were one. And by banished from the garden, they were banished into kind of this split mind, the conscious and the subconscious mind. You know, and again, if people want to dive deeper into this, I strongly recommend his book, The Origins of the Bicameral Mind. But yeah, basically his concept of the apple and the Garden of Eden is the forbidden fruit, and the split of the mind, the fracturing, the creation of the altar started there, and that was kind of the exiting of Eden. And he says that without a doubt, he proves quite conclusively to his own opinions that there was a time in our human existence where man was receiving auditory hallucinations. We talked about this in the Voice of God technology and how that kind of ties in with this whole time frame and the Adam and Eve story. And again, how much biblical references were there surrounding this Super Bowl. I mean, it was incredible, right? And I've still seen articles popping up. I don't know if that storm is actually going to do anything to Las Vegas, but leading up to the Super Bowl, and I even saw some the day of the Super Bowl, biblical flood coming to Las Vegas, people preparing. And we talked about the kind of underground, that exists in Las Vegas, again, it being the city of sin, and kind of the idea of the pits of hell in a way, and the people that live below the strip who are going to be flooded and killed, and but yeah.
And then I was going to tie this into, so this was a thread that Tom DeLonge tweeted last year, and I can't read all of this, but I guess I'll read some of it, because Gnostics saw the archons as counterfeit spirits exploiting the technique of counter mimicry, in which they copy something that already exists and then give it a twist to make it produce a different consequence or outcome. And
this is like a concept that exists very strongly in movies like The Matrix and Alice in Wonderland, and the alter twisting reality enough for you, the actual manifester, to alter, to steer. And that's kind of what we just described when we talk about these large events like the Super Bowl, that in a way we're dealing with a kind of etheric ocean, the conscious mind or the subconscious mind as a collective, and that these events, when they get enough eyes, that they can manipulate that subconscious and turn the rudder of the collective, the global collective, or not necessarily global, but a large percentage of people, like the Olympics and these big events, the soccer games, but I think that's what they're referencing, but keep going.
So some of this is just saying exactly what you would expect it would say: cosmic imposters, parasites who pose as gods, so on and so on. But I wanted to skip until they even added in, let's see. No known science. So they retweeted this slide right here. The science exists. The science exists for an enemy of the United States to manipulate both physical and cognitive environments in order to penetrate U.S. facilities, influence decision makers, and compromise national security. Psychotronic weapons, cognitive human interface, penetration of solid surfaces, alteration, manipulation of biological organisms, anomalies in the space-time construct. Exactly what we're talking about.
What's that effect that's been really popular? Again, I'm spacing the name of it.
Mandela effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So and here it goes on, and I'm almost done with this right here. I could probably finish this one. It could have been made of pure electromagnetic energy. Right.
We're talking about the craft.
They're talking about UFO sightings here. Yeah, this is also the same thread that from Tom DeLonge, as same as the archons from before.
Mm-hmm.
So they're talking about both like natural and artificial cause of these things. And we talked about voice of God technology and stuff like that in the first video.
Again, anyone familiar with my larger body of work, I'd say probably my bread and butter, Anomalous America. I would strongly suggest, if you haven't yet, to check out the Nevada episode. I dive quite deeply into the subterranean world that is Nevada, kind of the historical references made by some of the Aboriginal tribes in Nevada when they talk about cannibal-eating giants that live underground, and that they come out to the surface every once in a while to consume human flesh, and that they had magical, mystical powers, that they could manipulate minds, that they could leap through the air, that they could manipulate your mental faculties and get you to do things. And they kind of related them to the jinn. There's far more. Again, when we talk about aliens, I just believe in extraterrestrial, that they come from an extra land that we're unaware of. You're certainly entitled to your own opinions. If you want to say they come from outside the realm or space, it's no problem at all. Again, I'm not trying to convince anybody, but from my own experience, and research. They're coming from under the ground. They're coming from out of the ocean or under the surface. And the historical narrative of a subterranean world exists so strong in Nevada, and especially the American Southwest, but Nevada is especially, it's pretty insane. In fact, I have a video on my channel called Underground Villages and Railways of 1865, and that the deep underground military bases of today are just a strategic takeover of the old subterranean worlds that existed in prior civilizations. And so again, we're talking 10D here, 3D, 4D, 10D when it comes to the placement of it being in Las Vegas, the alchemical relation. Again, it's so many things. It's the time, it's the date, it's the location, it's so many things. And so I think the first ad I saw for the Super Bowl was that one I sent you about the UFO. And again, so a lot of the kind of underlying potent symbols were alchemy, again, the radium kind of nuclear energy, aliens. What else would you say if you had to pick a few more?
I'm sorry. Wait, the Wi-Fi just cut off for a second for me. Can you repeat that question?
Oh, I was just saying, picking some of my most potent symbols from the event, and I mentioned alchemy.
Oh, yeah, right.
Numerology, of course.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I was thinking about was and tying all this in together, and the whole theme of what we've been talking about this whole time is, I'm sure you're familiar with the Bledsoe family, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not too super familiar, but I clicked on one interview of Ryan Bledsoe, and he obviously, because he's talking about the Philosopher's Stone and the relation with UFOs and everything like that.
Uh-huh.
And on this podcast I clicked on, they were asking him about that, and he was basically saying that he didn't know exactly how to perfectly explain it, but that there was something about these UFO sightings that had to do with the union of the masculine and the feminine within. And but yeah, I don't know. I think I probably cut that podcast off pretty early, but I would be curious to hear what would take that.
Can you go to one article really quick, and I think we'll probably tie it all up here.
Yeah.
Go to your browser and type in Drew Bledsoe Taylor Swift.
Drew Bledsoe Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
The former quarterback?
Yeah. I know that you're talking about a different Bledsoe, but
no, I know, but no, I just think that's crazy because I haven't heard Drew Bledsoe in forever.
Exactly. So that's why I was saying that you should check it out, because this is something that popped up on my feed when I was looking into Taylor Swift and the Super Bowl a few days ago. May have been yesterday, actually. I can't remember. Maybe the day before. But yeah, his why he's even, and there's several articles written about this, right? Why he's even being written about when it comes to talking about Taylor Swift, because everybody's talking about her. So I just thought that was funny since you mentioned the Bledsoe material. And then I had seen an article where Drew Bledsoe, again, not the Bledsoe you're talking about, but the correlation was pretty funny.
Yeah. Credits Taylor Swift for drawing more women to the game. That's funny. Yeah, again, because he's not even
are throwing around a Vesca Pisces.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You got a bunch of men playing a sacred sport dedicated to the sacred feminine, essentially, and giants, right?
Yeah,
the fallen. But yeah, is there a specific topic you'd like to finish up with?
No, I don't know, because I kind of do feel like the Wi-Fi is kind of giving out on me. I'm in a hotel right now, guys. So that's the explanation. And again, yeah, because we could just go deeper on all the nuke stuff and the predictive programming and everything, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole that would just take a while to go down, I would say. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know, but we still covered. as long as we got to like at least some of the alien stuff, I was cool with that at least.
I think it's, again, for those of you who tuned in last time or those who are seeing this for the first time, hopefully this will be the start of a long series with me and you, where we kind of just digest and break down and give our opinions on a whole wide range of things, not just kind of the social spectrum of the reality we encounter, but maybe we dive into more of the kind of movie material that we've talked about or whatever it is specifically. So I think these are subjects we'll cover again in later episodes. And, but yeah, we could go all day just talking about Nevada and the potent symbolism there and why Las Vegas is where it is, and the buried past that is Nevada. And man, yeah, it's a rabbit hole for sure, no pun intended. But yeah, actually,
yeah, there is before we go, I guess there's probably one more thing that I wanted to read that I didn't get to. That's gonna be real quick. I just wanted to bring up the fact that, so obviously you have the Vegas pyramid, the Luxor, right behind the stadium. And this was something that just correlates so much with like all the programming that I find and the way they incorporate the pyramids or like pyramid symbolism into, all the movies and everything like that. This is from Manly P. Hall talking about how the pyramid was, literally he says that they actually literally use the word portal in this writing, where they would go in and have these out-of-body experiences, and they call it the womb of the mysteries. They entered as portals as men, they came forth as gods to die and be reborn, place of the second birth, and so on. And yeah, so I don't know, I just couldn't get out of here without adding that symbolism in with ISIS, Taylor Swift, and everything going on. But yeah, I just wanted to finish adding that part in.
Yeah, I love it. And, we've talked about this before, and I've talked about this and posted on this for years now, that another name for Noah was Janus, and the Janus and Noah were defined in ancient literature as the builders of the pyramid. So, of course, you would see the portal symbolism and kind of that gateway Travis hopping between bridges reality, right? And again, the Chiefs beating the 49ers, I think we covered quite a lot there. And okay, again, we're never going to be able to cover all of it, of course. Just kind of hopefully provide all you listeners with an interesting take and kind of breakdown on the goings on of the Super Bowl and the kind of sacred time frame that we're in here, with the Valentine's Day, Lupercalia, Carnival, as we start to transition into March, the true first month of the year. And, January and February are altered months, and that March 1st was the true new year, so to say. That this is kind of the revelatory time. But yeah, so I think I did a better job of talking less and hopefully allowing you to present more of your hard work. And as I've stated for you guys before, if you aren't familiar with PsyClops, links to his YouTube and his Twitter will be in the description. A rabbit hole that's as deep as you want to go, hundreds of hours of material on all kinds of subject matter. And I'm really looking forward to more videos like this in the future. We've talked about so many shows that we both love, and I've been saying to my listeners for a long time that I look forward to eventually doing some breakdowns on some movies and some television shows, but finding the time and having a kind of person to bounce ideas off of, and is really beneficial in that type of setting. So yeah, as always, I appreciate you being here, and let the people know what you got going on and kind of maybe your future plans, if there are any, and
Yeah, well, first, I mean, obviously, thank you. I appreciate you and everyone listening, of course. And these first 2 episodes really, obviously, I knew I wasn't going to have the perfect podcasting skill set down immediately and figuring out how to, go through all these tabs and have them open and, because obviously some podcasts, some people kind of just get on with like, well, that's what most people just get on and talk to somebody. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And for me,
the more organic, the better it can be. And again, it's never going to be perfect. And again, we kind of talked about this off air that just hopping into a live and just doing it, is the best way, because you're just going to nitpick, as I've told you before.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm 200 plus episodes into this, and I still ramble and talk over people and do things that when I watch it back, I'm like irritated with myself, and that's okay. That's just how it goes. And
yeah, and I'm sick. My voice cracked twice. I would have had to edit that out, and that would have ruined the thing.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing why I do it like this, is because time is precious for me, as you're aware, and many of my listeners. I don't even have time to edit. So, quality over quantity, sure, but the reality too is that you gotta, pick your poison, so to say. And I'm okay with having errors and blips and missteps and mispronunciations and all of those things. It feels like a more real conversation. So, but yeah, like I was saying, I can't wait until we can do this again, whether we're decoding some social event or we're talking about some of these shows and movies that we've been talking about for such a long time. So I think our listeners can look forward to some new stuff like that coming down the line. Is there anything you're working on or that you want to work on coming up for YouTube or Twitter?
Yeah, well, I would say so. I mean, the next couple of things that I'm thinking about is I'm going to actually just be laying out like my near-death experience story and like the whole all like this synchronicities that I was seeing after it and everything like that, and going through it and really just explaining like how all the signs that I was seeing actually tie into all of these, like the rebirth that we're talking about here. And that's why these first 2 episodes I feel like went so well, because these first 2 episodes right here, because somebody might think we're just talking about like football or something, but these 2 episodes are the perfect template to just carry over to everything else that I'm going to be doing in the future.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a lot of stuff like this, like just, seeing all these patterns and, once you see it so many times, I mean, again, like how many times?
Oh, you broke up for a second, but yeah, how many times? And we kind of talked about this decoding being a bit of a muscle, and the more you flex that muscle, the better you get at it. And, again, I'm certainly not perfect, and there are so many great decoders, quotations decoders out there that I would never be able to do them justice by even just dropping a name or sharing the material. But it's just a journey, like all things, that you all have to go on and find your own way. And ultimately, we're just hoping that you enjoy your time watching and listening along with us, and that you have some positives that you take away from these things. And I think one of the biggest things for me when I first got into this space was getting overly consumed with it in a negative kind of lens. And, it's kind of overwhelming. You feel like all these witches are like casting spells on me, and it can be a bit of a dark place. And I know you know what I'm talking about, and certainly some of you guys out there listening may. But ultimately, just think of it as, you're just strengthening that muscle. And again, like the idea of magic and manipulation carries no weight when you see it for what it is, and the spell has no effect on you. It's just awareness. It's all about awareness, and to not let any of these things get you down, and to feel impervious, and that again, just to feel some kind of strength from your ability to kind of see through the bullshit, in a sense, although it's not quite bullshit. It's just kind of a show, right? Life is an illusion. It's all Maya anyway. So enjoy the ride, type of thing.
Oh. Wait, I don't want to be that guy, but you just said something
Yeah.
You just said Maya illusion. There was this one commercial. Discover customer service. So the robot answering machine is called Maya. Look at that.
Mm.
Your robots are sounding more human every day. That was actually one of the things I was going to bring up too. But yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't want to turn this into a 3-hour podcast, but
No. We could though. That's the reality.
yeah.
So we gotta end it somewhere.
Yeah.
And but yeah, make sure again, everybody out there, to check out the ND experience, ND experience on Twitter and on YouTube. You just search that, you'll find it. I'll have links in the description. And yeah, look forward to doing this again. And can't wait to see what it is we sit down and work on another kind of breakdown decode video for. But yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. And anything you want to say real quick before we sign off?
No, I'm good. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
All right. Love you guys so much.